Bobby. Scorsese stopped, noticing De Niro. His eyebrows shot up. What are you doing here? Me. De Niro turned slowly, his gaze icy. I'm trying to get my room, Marty. The one you seem to have taken. Guests in the lobby began whispering. Some pulled out their phones to record the scene. Two legendary friends, who together created Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and The Irishman, stood face to face, the air between them crackling with tension. My room. Scorsese laughed, but there was a nervous edge to it. Bobby, I booked it a month ago. You know I always take the suite with the park view. It's my tradition. Your tradition? De Niro took a step closer. I told them back in August I'd be here. You knew I was coming, Marty. You did this on purpose. On purpose. Scorsese raised his hands as if defending himself. Bobby, are you serious? I'm not your agent, keeping track of your bookings. Linda tried to intervene. Gentlemen, please, we can find a solution. We have another suite. I don't need another suite, De Niro cut her off, his eyes locked on Scorsese. I want my room. And I want to know why my friend, who I've worked with for half a century, decided to screw me over. Scorsese rolled his eyes. Screw you over? Bobby, you're being dramatic. It's just a hotel room. If it means that much to you, take it. I'll get another one. But De Niro didn't back down. His voice dropped to a near whisper. It's not about the room, Marty. It's about respect. You think you can just take what you want because you're Martin Scorsese? I'm not one of your actors you can move around like a pawn. Tim and Scorsese's assistant exchanged nervous glances. The guests in the lobby fell silent, hanging on every word. The atmosphere was so tense it seemed even the chandeliers stopped humming. Scorsese sighed and rubbed his temple. Bobby, you know I respect you. But you're turning this into some kind of vendetta. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. De Niro leaned closer. I'll tell you what's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that you criticize modern cinema, call it empty, but fight over a suite like it's your Oscar. Maybe you should look in the mirror, Marty. Those words hit Scorsese like a slap. His face reddened, and he took a step forward. And you, Bobby? You think you're a saint? You go to these charity events, waving your name around, but everyone knows you just want to be noticed again. You can't handle younger actors stealing your spotlight. Tim tried to step in. Mr. De Niro, maybe we. Tim, shut up, De Niro snapped, his eyes still on Scorsese. At that moment, the hotel doors swung open, and a group of journalists, there to cover the charity event, poured into the lobby. They immediately noticed the argument and rushed toward De Niro and Scorsese, pulling out cameras and microphones. Mr. De Niro, what's going on? Is it true you're kicking Scorsese out of the hotel? A young reporter shouted. Kicking him out? De Niro turned to her, his eyes flashing. I just want justice. Scorsese raised a hand, trying to stop the crowd. There's no story here. It's just a misunderstanding. But the journalists didn't back off. An older man from the New York Post asked, Mr. Scorsese, is it true you deliberately took De Niro's room? Is this some kind of revenge for him refusing to star in your latest project? Scorsese spun around. Who said that? That's a lie. Bobby, tell them it's a lie. But De Niro stayed silent. He looked at Scorsese, and in his gaze was something more than anger, disappointment, pain, the weight of decades of friendship cracking at the seams. Bobby, Scorsese said softly, don't do this. Don't turn this into a circus. De Niro exhaled slowly. He turned to Linda. Find me another room. But this isn't over. He turned and walked toward the bar, leaving Scorsese in the middle of the lobby, surrounded by journalists. Guests whispered, cameras clicked, and the scent of coffee mixed with the tension hanging in the air. In the bar, De Niro ordered a whiskey. His hands trembled slightly as he took the glass. Tim cautiously sat beside him. Mr. De Niro, what do we do now? De Niro took a sip, his gaze fixed on the mirror behind the bar. We don't fight, Tim. We talk. But first, I want to know why Marty did this. Tim sighed. Do you think it was really intentional? I don't know, De Niro replied. But I'll find out. And when I do, it'll change everything. Outside, the bartender turned on the TV, and headlines flashed across the screen. De Niro versus Scorsese. Scandal at the Plaza. Social media exploded. Some called it a publicity stunt, others the end of an era. But no one knew what had really happened, or what was about to happen next. The bar at the Plaza was a quiet refuge after the chaos in the lobby. Wooden panels on the walls absorbed sound, and the dim glow of lamps created an illusion of calm. Outside, the lights of Fifth Avenue flickered, while inside, the air carried the scent of oak barrels from the whiskey and a faint trace of cigar smoke left by some tycoon earlier. De Niro sat at the bar, his fingers slowly turning the glass. Tim stayed silent, sensing it wasn't the time for talk. On the other side of the hotel, in his suite overlooking Central Park, Scorsese paced back and forth, phone pressed to his ear. His assistant, Anthony, a young man with a nervous habit of adjusting his glasses, sat on the couch, scrolling through a tablet. Fran, I don't know where this mix-up came from. Scorsese waved his hand, talking to his agent. I didn't steal his room. It's absurd. But Bobby, he turned it into a spectacle. He knew there'd be journalists. The voice on the other end was calm but firm. Marty, relax. This looks bad for both of you. Social media's going wild. Some call you selfish, others call Bobby paranoid. You need to talk to him. Privately. Scorsese stopped, his gaze falling on the park's panorama outside the window. The leaves swayed in a gentle breeze, reminding him of shooting New York in the 70s. Back then, he and De Niro were inseparable, two rebels challenging Hollywood. What had changed? Talk. Scorsese rubbed his temples. He doesn't want to listen. Did you hear what he said about my comments on modern cinema? He hit below the belt. And you accused him of chasing fame, Fran replied. You both went too far. Make the first move, Marty. You know he won't back down. Scorsese tossed the phone onto the couch and turned to Anthony. Find out where he is. I'm not chasing him, but if he's in the bar, I'll go there. Anthony nodded and quickly texted Tim. Meanwhile, in the bar, De Niro finished his whiskey and ordered another. The bartender, an older man with a gray beard, poured the drink with a reverence, as if serving a king. Rough night, Mr. De Niro, he asked, his voice raspy but kind. You heard what happened? De Niro raised an eyebrow. In this hotel, rumors spread faster than the flu, the bartender grinned. But I've seen worse. In the 80s, an actor threw a glass at a director over a role. You and Mr. Scorsese haven't started fighting. Yet. De Niro chuckled, but a shadow of a smile flickered in his eyes. For now. He took a sip and glanced at his reflection in the mirror. Wrinkles, gray hair, a heavy gaze, he was far from the young Travis Bickle, but the same fire still burned inside. Scorsese knew that, and yet something had gone wrong. The bar door opened, and Scorsese walked in. He looked less confident than in the lobby, his shoulders slouched, his hands nervously fidgeting with his tie. Guests at nearby tables turned their heads, but Scorsese ignored them. He approached the bar and sat 2 stools away from De Niro. Jack, same as he's having, Scorsese said to the bartender, nodding at De Niro's glass. De Niro didn't turn, but his fingers tightened around his glass. What, you changed your mind about running off with your suite? His voice was cold but lacked aggression. Bobby, I didn't steal your room, Scorsese sighed. It was a mistake, but you turned it into a spectacle. Why? Why? De Niro finally turned to him. Because I'm tired, Marty. Tired of you acting like you're entitled to everything. You knew I'd be here. You could have called, said, Bobby, let's sort this out. But no, you just took what you wanted. Scorsese shook his head. You think I sit around plotting to mess with you? I've got things to do, Bobby. I'm working on a new project, fighting these streaming platforms that want to control everything. I wasn't thinking about your room. And were you thinking about me? De Niro leaned closer. The last 2 years, not a single call. Not a word after The Irishman. You think I didn't notice? Scorsese froze. His eyes, hidden behind glasses, glinted. You pulled away, Bobby. After The Irishman, you dove into your charity projects, turned down my script. I thought you weren't interested anymore. Not interested? De Niro tapped his fist on the counter, softly to avoid attention. Marty, we made films that changed the world. And now you're shooting for Netflix, while I'm running around to save theaters you call outdated. You think that doesn't hurt? The bartender set a whiskey in front of Scorsese and tactfully stepped away, sensing the conversation was too personal. Scorsese took a sip, his face wincing at the strength. I never called your theaters outdated, he said quietly. I said streaming is the reality. But you took it as betrayal. Because it is betrayal, De Niro shot back. You sold out, Marty. You criticize Marvel, but make films for the people killing the cinema we loved. Scorsese slammed his glass down. And you're doing comedies with young stars who don't know who Fellini is. You think that's not betrayal? They stared at each other, their gazes a mix of anger, pain, and something deeper, love for the art that united them and fear that it was slipping away. The guests in the bar pretended not to listen, but every move was under scrutiny. Gentlemen, a voice interrupted. It was Linda, the receptionist, approaching the counter. Her face was pale. I need to tell you something. De Niro and Scorsese turned to her simultaneously. What now? De Niro muttered. Linda swallowed. It's my fault. I accidentally confirmed Mr. Scorsese's booking without checking that the room was already reserved for you, Mr. De Niro. I thought it was a system error. I didn't tell you right away, because I was scared. Scorsese leaned forward. So it wasn't Bobby's mistake? Or mine? No, sir. Linda lowered her eyes. It was me. I'm ready to take responsibility. If I need to, I'll resign. De Niro rubbed his temple, his anger slowly fading. Resign. He looked at her. How long have you worked here? 20 years, Linda replied softly. I love this job, but I understand I ruined your evening. Scorsese leaned back, his face softening. Linda, calm down. No one's resigning. It's just a room. But De Niro didn't look away from her. Why didn't you say so earlier? His voice was calm but firm. Linda sighed. You're both legends. I was afraid that if I told the truth, it would cause an even bigger scandal. And then the journalists. I panicked. De Niro and Scorsese exchanged a glance. A flicker of understanding passed between them. They both knew the pressure of fame, the expectations, the fear of making a mistake. Linda, De Niro said, next time, just tell the truth. We don't bite. Well, at least I don't. Scorsese snorted. Speak for yourself, Bobby. Linda looked at them, surprised, then gave a faint smile. Thank you. I'll bring you another round. On the house. She walked away, leaving De Niro and Scorsese in silence. The tension between them hadn't vanished, but it had shifted, not hostile, but reflective. So, Scorsese broke the silence. Are we going to keep blaming each other, or are we going to talk like normal people? De Niro finished his whiskey and looked at him. We'll talk, but not here, and not tonight. Tomorrow, after your charity event. You've got a speech, right? Scorsese nodded. And you've got yours. About the theaters. Yeah. De Niro gave a faint smile, without warmth. Maybe we're both trying to save what we love, just in different ways. They fell silent. Outside, New York kept living its life. Taxis honked, lights flickered, and the world spun on. But in that moment in the Plaza's bar, two old friends realized their conflict wasn't just about a room. It was about time passing, dreams fading, and a friendship that could still be saved. The next evening, the ballroom at the Plaza was a vision of glamour and anticipation. Crystal chandeliers sparkled, reflecting light on gilded walls, and the air was filled with the soft buzz of conversation and the delicate scent of orchids arranged on the tables. Guests, directors, actors, philanthropists, and journalists sat at round tables draped in white linens, sipping champagne and whispering about the previous night's scandal. Social media was still ablaze. The hashtag De Niro versus Scorsese racked up millions of views, and tabloids spun dozens of theories, from revenge for old grudges to a secret PR stunt. The charity event was dedicated to preserving cinematic heritage, and both De Niro and Scorsese were scheduled to speak. The organizers, nervous about the prior day's events, had deliberately spaced their speeches apart in the program, but the tension in the room was palpable, like an electric charge. Every guest waited to see what would happen when the two titans of cinema shared the same stage. Scorsese spoke first. He stepped onto the stage to thunderous applause, his small frame looking even smaller under the bright spotlights. He wore a black tuxedo, and his glasses caught the light as he adjusted the microphone. "Good evening," he began, his voice calm but laced with passion. "We're here to protect cinema, not just entertainment, but an art form that tells our stories, preserves our memories. I grew up in a little theater in Queens, where for 10 cents I could see Fellini or Bergman. Those theaters aren't just buildings. They're temples." The room erupted in applause. Scorsese spoke about his fight to preserve old film reels, about how streaming platforms were changing the way we experience cinema. But there was a shadow in his words. He avoided mentioning De Niro, though everyone knew he was sitting in the front row, his gaze fixed on the stage. When Scorsese finished, the host invited De Niro. The room fell silent as the actor slowly ascended the stage. His walk was confident, but his eyes betrayed weariness. He stopped at the microphone, surveyed the audience, and for a moment it seemed he might say something sharp. But instead, he smiled, faintly, but genuinely. "Marty said it well," De Niro began, and the room buzzed with surprise. "Cinema is temples, but temples without people are just stones. I'm fighting for theaters not because I love old buildings, but because I believe stories should be experienced together. In the dark, with strangers laughing or crying beside you." He paused, his gaze settling on Scorsese, who sat in the front row, hands clasped tightly. "Marty and I, we made that kind of cinema. We fought, we argued, but we always believed in the same thing. And yesterday," De Niro sighed, "yesterday we didn't show our best selves." The room froze. Journalists grabbed their recorders. Guests exchanged glances. Scorsese looked up, his eyes narrowing. "It wasn't just about a hotel room," De Niro continued. "It was about us, about how we let time, pride, and misunderstandings come between us. I accused Marty of selling out. He accused me of chasing fame. And you know what? We were both wrong." Scorsese slowly stood. The room hummed, but the host gestured for silence. Scorsese climbed onto the stage, and now they stood side by side, two old friends whose names were etched in cinema history. "Bobby," Scorsese adjusted his glasses, his voice trembling. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I never did. But you're right. We drifted apart. And I missed you." The room exploded in applause, but De Niro raised a hand, asking for quiet. "Marty, I missed you too," he said softly, the microphone carrying his words to every corner of the hall. "We can't go back to the 70s. But we can do something new, together." He extended his hand. Scorsese looked at it, then at De Niro, and his face broke into a smile. They shook hands, and the room erupted in a standing ovation. Journalists scrambled to take photos, guests rose from their seats, and tears glistened in many eyes. It wasn't just a gesture of reconciliation. It was a moment when two legendary friends reminded the world that art and friendship are stronger than any conflict. But the story didn't end there. After the event, De Niro and Scorsese stayed in the ballroom as the guests dispersed. They sat at a table, sipping coffee, and talked about old shoots, new ideas, and how to save cinema in the age of streaming. They didn't reach concrete plans, but a spark returned to their eyes, one that hadn't been there for years. The next day, tabloids exploded with new headlines. De Niro and Scorsese reconcile. New masterpiece on the horizon. Social media buzzed. Fans shared memes and memories of Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. But no one knew what would happen next. Would they make a new film? Continue their charity projects? Or simply remain friends who finally understood each other? Outside the plaza's windows, New York hummed with life. Wind swept fallen leaves through Central Park, taxis honked on Fifth Avenue, and the city breathed stories, old and new. And somewhere in that noise, two old friends took the first step toward something greater. Not fame, not victory, but understanding that even a small conversation can change everything.